The US is not becoming a dictatorship. It's a lot worse. Let me explain. A totalitarian or authoritarian regime needs a strong, centralized government. Look at current authoritarian regimes such as China, Russia, and the UAE, and totalitarian regimes like North Korea. They all have well-functioning centralized government systems. Sure, while decision-making might be in the hands of one person or a small group of powerful people, they would need a well-functioning government to carry out their policies. And looking back on history, when a dictator takes over a country, such as in 1930s Germany, they took over the government. They want the government to continue functioning because that's how they exert their power, through government systems such as the court and police. And more importantly, anarchy and chaos are decisively bad for creating and maintaining consolidated, centralized control. That's why anarchism and authoritarianism occupied the opposite end of the political spectrum. Some of Trump's actions seemed authoritarian, such as replacing key government officials with Trump loyalists, but other actions, I would say the majority of his actions since he took office, are about systemically destroying the federal government. That's when the traditional political analysis fails. We can no longer follow the money or the re-election to try to understand why Trump and Musk are doing what they are doing right now, because a weak federal government doesn't help Trump or Musk directly profit. The military-industrial complex, federal subsidies, and regulatory loopholes are all sources of enormous wealth for billionaires. And these things cannot exist without a bureaucratic federal government. Even if Trump or Musk want to benefit more by setting themselves as dictators, they still need a system to execute their power. Without a strong, tightly controlled federal government, their power or even wealth would mean nothing. So if it's not about power or money, what is the real goal of Project 2025? Project 2025 is a controlled demolition of the US federal government. Instead of building a competent dictatorship, Trump and Musk and people from the Heritage Foundation are gutting federal institutions so they simply cease to function. If you replace career civil servants, scientists, and legal experts with unqualified loyalists, these institutions will be unable to function properly, even if someone competent takes office in the next election. This is not about reforming or restructuring the government for a dictator. It is about rendering it permanently ineffective. But why? Cui bono? Who benefits? As previously discussed, billionaires need government systems to benefit from its many programs and loopholes. And it seemed counterintuitive for them to destroy their income source. But what if there are better income sources? What if, instead of gaming the system, they become the system? What if, instead of bending the rules, they make the rules? When government institutions can't function, power shifts to those with private influences, tech billionaires. The key word of Project 2025 is privatization. If the government is weak and ineffective, essential services, education, healthcare, energy, law enforcement, military, will become private industries controlled by the wealthy. When everything is privatized, we effectively live in a plutocracy where corporations run everything and ordinary people have no democratic protections. Libertarian corporate feudalism, aka Peter Thiel's wet dream. The goal of Project 2025 is to usher in this late-stage capitalist, corporate feudalist hellscape by fundamentally and permanently destroying the federal government so that future presidents would have no way of governing. That means even if a Democratic president were to be elected in 2028, he or she or they look around at the federal government and realize that the only way they could govern is to rely on the private sector. By this point, it would be impossible to nationalize these basic functions such as energy, education, law enforcement, and emergency services because, OMG, it would be gasp, communism. Trump doesn't care about governance or solving problems. He wants revenge, loyalty, and protection from legal consequences. A weakened government would mean nobody would hold him accountable, and a privatized legal system would mean he could buy his way out of any consequences. Musk wants unrestricted corporate control. He doesn't want a functional government that sets rules for him. Billionaire tech bros want a deregulated playground. No antitrust laws, no labor protection, no environmental restrictions, no safety regulations. They do whatever they want. They become the new ruling class. America becomes a failed state under corporate rule. We would be lucky if we ended up with an authoritarian regime like Russia or China, because that means we would still have a government that filled potholes and checked food safety. No. What Musk, Project 2025, and Peter Thiel want is much, 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 much worse.